Hi, welcome to our new podcast, The Cultural Barrier by Changing Suits. My name's Bal.
And my name's Taj.
Now, we are starting a new series of podcasts. We have missed doing it. We are back with the 2026 podcast episodes. And what are we about? So, on today's episode, we're going to be talking about who we are, me and Taj, why we started the podcast initially, but why we're starting up again, and what's changed over the year that we haven't been on it. So, Taj, who are you? Who are you?
God, this is so many deep questions straight away.
Who are
My name's Taj, and I am the older sister of Bal. That's all I'm known as. You know, like when you have people that are just known, this is my mum, this is my sister, kind of thing.
So you're known as Bal's sister.
Yeah.
I'm doing something right, guys. Oh, God. Yes.
So we're two sisters. We're from a family of 3 girls. So we've got another sister, and then we've got a younger brother. The younger brother is where the parents stopped having children.
Oh, my God. You're going into so much detail yet already. What about you? Tell me about you. Who are you?
Oh, it's never about me. I'm not that selfish. But anyway, let's make it about me. So I am a sister.
Oh, yeah, we got it. You're a sister.
That's all I am. I've got 2 children and a husband. And that is all there is about me today. No, we started this podcast. So we initially started this podcast about 4.5 years ago. And the reason why we started is we were discussing the issues that we have within our own family, and then realized that many families are going through the same situation. And that's where our podcasts were born.
We had friends, other family that were going through very similar situations. So why not just talk about it? And you know those gossip sessions that you do over the phone with your sister? We're putting it out there so that everyone else can hear. Now, what happened from that was all of a sudden we've got an organization where we've got services coming to us saying, oh, we're not getting engagement from the South Asian community. Help us out, please. So we've really grown our organization, mainly in Swindon. We've done some work in West London as well. But the reason we stopped the podcast, in fact, that was one of the reasons we stopped the podcast initially, it was because both of us were pretty busy, right?
Yeah, it was a case of us looking after our well-being and making sure that we had the right balance. I hate that word when they say got the right balance, but making sure that we were growing our organization. And then when we were ready and a place that we were happy,
it was about our well-being, i.e. we didn't have any time to do it, because if we did the podcast like we did before, where we were recording in the evenings and on the weekends, then it would have been tough to actually talk to our kids. I mean, we like our kids a little bit. And the reason I've said that is because Taj is a daughter sitting behind her as well. So anyway, I'm sure she's smiling. But on a serious note, we look back at our lives, right? So you said, we're 3 sisters and a brother. What got us here, where we are, because we have been brought up in a household where our parents were from Punjab. We've been born and brought up in the UK. So what are the sort of positives and negatives of both cultures? And what is the new culture that is being brought about with the fact that we're from 2 different cultures, and what that then introduces? Now, we've both got kids. I've got 2 kids, 1 son and a daughter. I have a husband, lucky he's still there, and we haven't killed each other, I guess. But I live in West London. Taj lives in Swindon. And yeah, I think that's an introduction to our current lives. So what are the type of topics that we discuss on the podcast, Taj?
so we delve deep into many topics, and some of them are to do with domestic abuse. And the reason why we're going into that particular topic is because we've started off a service in Swindon to support women that are going through domestic abuse. We talk about an array of health issues, because in the South Asian community, there are certain health issues that
I thought you were going to start giving your medical report because we've got medical issues.
I won't do that. That will take all day.
Yes.
There's certain topics that we don't like to talk about or disclose in the community because we're worried about what will people say. That in itself rolls onto the big next topic that we will be discussing in a podcast. What will people say, and how community impacts the decisions that we make day to day.
Okay. I feel like since we've been off here, we were getting really comfortable doing podcasts, and I'm finding it's slightly rusty. So even now, the introduction podcast, we're like, this is new. Right?
Yeah, I think we just need to get back into the saddle and start and feeling comfortable again. But hopefully you'll see through our journey, through our next podcast, that we will be back into our flow.
Perfect. Okay. So, in regards to our upbringing, I personally think that we've had a good upbringing. I mean, what's interesting of when we were doing the podcast last time round is we pretty much just did it just to have a conversation online and see where it went. I mean, it was COVID, we had nothing better to do, and then obviously it turned into something. And one thing that was really important, I think for both of us actually, was the feedback we were getting from listeners. I mean, one of the feedbacks was that I was funnier than Taj, but that's why I won't go there. Do you remember that?
Do we go into that? No. Oh, actually, they did. Did they? I think they did say that, but
We
they
did a
also
poll.
said that Bal railroaded me quite a lot. So in these podcasts, we're going to see the evolution of our journey, how we have grown from those comments and changed our personality.
I feel like you're saying it. Hold on. I feel like you're saying it to me. And it's like, well, hold on. Does that mean you've got funnier? And I'll stop talking over railroading you?
I
No, I
think I'm
didn't.
funny anyway, but anyway, we'll let the audience decide that.
We'll put another poll out. So on a serious note, one thing that did really touch our hearts, and I don't talk about my heart very often, is the fact that people were feeding back and saying, I have been through this, I get where you're coming from, and actually listening to the stories of people that were coming on the podcast before, which obviously we'll be doing once again with the new series. But it sort of hit home of, yes, we did start it because a lot of people are going through the same thing, but it's actually people feeding back saying, with that whole thing of don't tell other people outside the community, don't talk about it, da da da. People are ready to talk about it. And I
I'm
don't
going
want
to stop you there because I think as we go along,
railroading.
through our podcast, we're going to actually find that we've certain topics you may think that we have moved on as a community. And from the feedback that I've had from the community, I don't think we've changed that much to the extreme. We're still worried about what people will say, for example, if we get divorced and things like that, or
Mm.
if we decide to be, I don't know, an artist rather than an accountant. So those, not just those particular topics, but generally we're still worried about what the aunties will say about us.
But then it's going back to the whole tick box exercise, isn't it? And that's something we will be looking into more of. We've said this previously where it's a case of our lives are tick boxes. But then is that a South Asian problem? Is it a British Asian problem? Is it something that's changing? I mean, are you tick boxing for your kids?
To a certain extent, but
Not
not to.
not a certain extent, to a high extent.
What do you
I've
mean by that?
like we push our kids like educationally because right, like come on.
Of
We
course we
do.
do. We want the best for them. We don't care if they cry. If they're going to sit an exam and we have to make them prepare for it and they're crying their eyes out, I don't care. You carry on doing it.
Okay, so but then the other part is then analyzing how we were brought up and then how our parenting and what we're passing on and what cycles we're sort of breaking for the future, right?
Not breaking,
Or not breaking, right? Or thinking that we're breaking.
but not
Also,
breaking.
well, yeah, that's something we'll explore. But the other part is, we've all got different sort of thoughts behind how much do we blame our parents for certain things? What are our parents' points of views? Because that's something that, we've never really sat down with our parents to sort of discuss, what they went through. What was their journey? How did they end up getting here? Yeah, we know, we only know a bit about our history. I mean, we're in 2026, and this is how soon we've recorded the podcast since the whole thing. I went and watched, the Christmas Karma film?
Yeah, a cartoon.
No, the Christmas Karma. So it's the Gurinder Chadha one that just came out in,
Sorry, Corinda.
and I learned something like really serious. Like I hadn't realized what the Asians went through. The Asians went
Those
through,
people.
yeah, in Uganda and how they were pushed out, and then how they ended up being in the UK. It was a really good film from that perspective. I didn't know, and I think there's so much that we don't know about our own quite recent history, and it is recent history, let alone the stuff that's gone on, hundreds of years before that. We don't know what's going on now. So that's something that I want to explore in the podcast, actually.
Yeah, I think exactly because we're at an age where we can do these podcasting, be on social media. We always talk about our childhood trauma, but what about the other way around? The parents' trauma that they were going through, that they had to live through, the mental health issues that they had to live through, what they were going through that may have impacted why they acted in a certain way. So we're always ready to blame But
I mean,
is it always our parents' fault that certain things happened the way that they did?
and then resilience, something that we bring up every so often. How resilient are we as people? Because if our parents, grandparents went through that and they did go through that, did they have mental health issues? That's something that we need to explore in the future. Actually, something that's, as we're talking, what is it that, we haven't pre-recorded the episodes. We're not that organized, but we're not. I mean,
We've got
you pretty,
time.
well, this is it. But what is it that you want to explore more of on the podcast? What can our listeners and viewers on our YouTube channel at changing underscore at changing underscore suits on YouTube, please subscribe. What can they expect from the podcasts that we
First
haven't
of all
pre-recorded?
First of all, we can ask for people to come forward if they want to be a guest, and you can email us on info@changingsuits.org. We're ready to listen to stories. Go on.
Or direct message us on our social media on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at changing underscore suits.
I like this.
Thank you very
Promo.
much. Promotion, all promotion.
So the things that I want to talk about as we go on through our podcast are actually looking back at history, how our past is now affecting the way that we are now. For example, just the words that we speak, the way that we act. And sometimes we don't even realize that it's affecting us now, those things that have happened to previous generations, how it's impacting us now. So I think that would be a very good and exciting thing to look at.
On that point, so something that we forgot to mention was, again, the learnings that we've had through our journey of changing suits. So there was something that occurred just a little while ago. So we work quite a lot with service providers. How can we get support for the community? What support is lacking? And there is a lot of gaps. We know there's loads of gaps. We have seen it personally. I mean, we can give personal stories, and that's something that we will do as we go on. In fact, let's do it now. We're on an episode. People want to know who we are. One of the incidents that has happened whilst we've been off air, is, we've had medical staff, for example, thinking that. Do you remember the phrase? Just mention the phrase because I think that's what shocked people when we previously
Go
said,
on, Emo, I want to know.
when we were told that in this country we do it like this.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that was a personal one, wasn't it? Where
that's a
we
personal.
went through it. Yeah, a personal story when we were said,
Where do you think we're from? Why would we not know this is how we do it in this country? Because we're from here. So why would you assume? And it's not from a place where the area wasn't a population.
diverse.
It was a diverse population, that's it. So it's not, it was a bit of a weird comment. And because it was a medical situation, we're sort of put aback of, well, we can't say anything back to you because you're a doctor, a consultant that's quite high up, that's got a very important job in that situation. So
And we're under their, like, whatever they decide, our life is in their hands. So you
And it
can't
was.
say anything back. You know, when they it said, oh, you can complain to so and so. Do you want to complain, or do you just zip it and put up with it? You might want to complain afterwards, but not when you're going through the issue. That's
Do you? Okay, so this bit is starting to get into a topic which I wasn't planning to. One thing that I find really interesting, yes, we know that a lot of people do a great job. We know they do. But then we're very quick at highlighting how great a job it is versus what people's experiences are, right? Are all of the staff that we come across actually doing the best that they can do? I don't know, especially with communities that are already facing inequalities, right? So even in that space where that happened and we couldn't say anything, the question was like, where did you think we were from? I mean, we've been in other situations where we were told that, we work with, this was in a more predominantly white area, I suppose, versus the previous situation of where we were told that we work mainly with normal people.
God.
And
Yeah, that was in a meeting, wasn't it? So
it was.
that really shocked us. But the funny thing is the wrong words to use. But the thing was, in that situation, we didn't say anything. We just let it go. Because I think there's times when people slip up and they make mistakes. I was offended, I must admit. They make mistakes because they were surrounded by people from the white community. So probably in her eyes, she would think that was a normal community we're working with. But I was offended. And from that, I did learn the lesson of, if someone does say something like that, I will challenge it at that point and not wait and just talk about it with someone else. We need to correct language. Even if it isn't coming from the wrong place,
Mhm.
it needs to be corrected. So even if there's like 100 people in the room, well, those 100 people are the audience of who may use that same language again. If there's someone that picks it up, maybe they don't know that's the right language to use in certain circumstances. And others, it might be that amongst themselves, they're just talking like that. So,
Okay, so another part is we are sisters. We've been brought up together, but we do have different perspectives. So in that situation, actually, I think it was a slip up. If you were to say something, I think the person would have been like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." And the flip side of that is actually people are starting to become so scared of saying things, and we've had this conversation because we've got good relationships with a lot of service providers, and people have been really honest with us. I mean, we have a laugh with a lot of the service providers, and we get on fantastic with the people that we work with, right? But one feedback was actually, I'm too scared of saying anything because I don't want to look like I'm a racist.
well, yeah, this was a situation that happened amongst my staff. It was a meeting that we were having with a police officer. And basically, I asked one of the staff members if they could make a cup of tea. And they looked at each other, and one of them just looked blankly. And I was like, oh, can the other one make the cup of tea? And then two of them went away to make the cup of tea. And I'm thinking, why does it need two people to make a cup of tea? So I go, why don't, come and join us? The other one can make the cup of tea. And what was the situation after like staff member made the cup of tea or whatever. But afterwards, we had a conversation about it, and I go, how comes both of you went to make that cup of tea? And all my staff members basically said, they're from the South Asian community, they all basically said, we don't know how to make an English cup of tea. And I was like, God. And then it made me realize, like, when I first started my job, I didn't actually know how to make an English cup of tea either, because it's just putting the kettle on and
Did
then
they make the normal cup of tea?
yeah, they did know how to make the normal cup of tea, the saucepan on the stove, and then boil everything to death,
Yeah.
the normal cup of tea. But it was just funny that
The
I
red
forgot.
one, I love that tea. The Indian
But
tea is
then I had a whole session of how to make a cup of tea, but I had to have that done in my first job as well, to be honest, because I didn't know how to make an English cup of tea. But now, slipping it back, when I was explaining that story in a meeting, I forgot the word English cup of tea. I was going to say, oh, I did say a white cup of tea. So it was a slip of the tongue. And I didn't think it through. So people are allowed to make mistakes. We're human. And
but then this is it, isn't it? I think it is that relationship where it's like, well, even if you brought it up, I mean, going back to that meeting situation, I wouldn't have brought it up in the meeting because there's other people in the meeting. Whereas I
I
would have,
would have. No,
yeah, but I
because
think if someone brought something up with me that I had said wrong, like that one, right? Okay, that one's a bit, the other one can be,
no, but if you turn it into not a telling off thing rather than a,
would you say
hey,
that?
you could
How would
just
you
say,
say,
hey, not normal. Ha 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 ha. Did you mean this? So you're not telling them off. I think there's a way of delivering. And so everyone learns from the situation. As long as you don't bark at them and be like, how dare you call it normal? I think that will be rude, because then that will go, first of all, that will make the other person not want to talk to you again, which is not something that you want to do. And then they
yeah,
might go into other situations where they will come across someone from the South Asian community and then find it hard to speak to them. Because we've had certain situations where things aren't dealt with or spoken about because people want to be so PC that that particular issue isn't then addressed. So you don't want the person feeling emotional and upset from what is said. But if you term it in a phrase which makes it like a ha ha ha, we all learning from this kind of thing, let's all be friends, I think there's a different way of delivery. I think that's really important.
but then see, I think it's, yeah, it is
But
that
you're not
relation.
going to be rude. I don't think it's a case of you have to be rude, because we've been in a situation where there was a particular podcast that we were doing, and this guest kept basically telling us off every time we said a particular word. And it wasn't that we meant to offend, it was just because that we were programmed that way to say that particular word. Because as you grow up, you'll learn certain things, but it's not because you're meaning to be offensive, it's just because you accidentally revert back to what you know. You've got to give people a chance to change. And another thing is, I'm perimenopausal. I forget a thing in 2 seconds. Give me a break.
But then see, I think there's a fine line because whether you bring it, I don't know, It's
Because
hard
then
to
I'd
figure
be in
out.
a situation where, and in that situation, I just stopped talking because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to make a slip up. I'd rather not say anything.
But then hold on, that is the issue. Because if someone's I agree, it is the delivery of whatever you're trying to say. I agree with you. Sales background, I get it. It's delivery, right? But then if the delivery came out wrong, right? In that situation, we were both there and it was just like, and yeah, we make everything into a bit of a laugh. We're like, whoa, that was like after the meeting, right? We laugh about a lot of situations, right? But if you had brought it up in the meeting, the delivery of how you said it was wrong, that person's got offended, then you've got a whole team that we still want to work with, right? And they want to work with us, right? Who are like, well, actually, if we can't talk openly and you've pissed us off a bit, then do we want to really, is there anything there? I
What
don't
if
know.
the person's rude? You don't want to go back to them. So what is your question then?
My question is, like, I think it's a fine line of how people take things, how people
But it's
deliver things.
about building up relationships as well. There's certain people that you won't get on with, and that's I think we've learnt that through life. You just won't get on with them. You won't be on the same page, but professionally, maybe you might need to get on with them. So you just get on with it. You don't have to lie in bed with them. You just need to get on with it.
I mean, yeah. So, okay. So we talk about our relationships. Oh, big reason we started the podcast and it continues to be with the Cultural Barrier podcast. It is talking about issues within the South Asian community. You know, you've mentioned a few already, menopause. I don't know why I laughed at that. That's not funny, right? We've, whether it's things like domestic abuse, mental health, we've covered, we all cover so many topics, but it's also the things that we're learning generationally as well because what our parents and grandparents went through, and we were brought up with by our grandparents, weren't we? Because our parents were too busy for working. I mean, not spending any time with us. I mean, I don't know how we've still got hearts or relationships with them. To be fair, they were too busy, right? I'm only joking. Like I credit my parents a lot just to make it interesting for the listeners. Listen to the next one when we actually have an episode with my mum and dad, which we have actually pre-recorded prior to this series, but also our relationship with our kids, because kids are just a whole other. Oh,
Yeah, I agree. Negating those things that we said that we would never do as parents, but have, like we've just said, have done again and then haven't broken the cycle because now we understand why certain actions were taken by our parents and why we have to do that as well.
but I think there's loads of social and cultural issues that are changing with today's society as well, with the fact that we went from our parents were from the East, having to settle here, dealing with the racism, which I don't think they completely got, to be fair.
Actually, pick up from where you've just said. We done a project and it's called Kahani Project if anyone wants to look it up. And quite a lot of the guests said how brilliant and rosy life was. And then I did come back to you about and say, do you think it's because they didn't understand that there was underlying racism going on and they just didn't pick it up? Because maybe their language wasn't at the level to understand. You know, when you have a double meaning of something, or if someone's being racist, and they thought, hey, no one's being racist, it was just a jolly old time. Or is it that life was just so nice that everyone was nice to each other? Personally, I think that there must have been racism going on.
Yeah.
I know you're going to think it just because I'm negative, but I just don't think that they realised.
I know, I do that.
And to be honest, does that really matter if they didn't realise because they got through life and they've done bloody better than us?
Okay, so let's go on to a topic, another topic in that case. If they didn't realize and they lived a rosy life and they got on with it and built whatever they built, because we had, the community has been very successful wherever they've gone. Do you think we should stop raising awareness about topics? Because if we're bringing it to the
No,
fore, you've just said it yourself. If they didn't,
no, but that was their time. This is our time. Now
right?
we are a bit more. They've laid the foundations for us. They've had to work hard. They've had to get on with it. They had to put up with the things that they had to put up with. But we're now standing. What's the saying? Standing on their backs, or whatever the saying is.
Yeah, I actually don't. You, yeah, you don't want to be standing on their backs. Where's the? I actually can't remember the
Won't
saying.
break because of osteoporosis.
But Johnny, they're at that point though, aren't they? Let me
Should
carry on.
know.
I'm gonna look.
Anyway, but now we're at a level and they've educated us to be those people that actually say, actually, that's wrong, and to
Yeah.
stick up for ourselves. So why aren't we going to stick up for ourselves? And especially in this climate now with our wonderful Trump and our Farage that is spreading hate like no one's business.
Whoa, we just went political.
But it's true. We should be standing up for ourselves. Because
Okay,
if we don't, no one is gonna.
yeah, I was trying to find the rest of the saying. Usually you get it wrong and I remember it. Standing on the shoulder.
Shoulders. Yeah, you're
Okay.
right, the shoulders.
Okay. I can't. Anyway, I agree. And I think that was another reason that I wanted to personally start the podcast up again, because there is a lot of stuff going on politically in the world and it's not positive for ethnic
Well,
diversity.
if people are openly being racist to your face, there's something quite not going right.
Yeah. And then that's something we will explore at some point as well. And that's it. I do agree that we do need to be a bit more out there with our opinions, and we can be. You know, we've got a voice, we've got an opinion, and we are able to do that. But then it goes back to, if you don't know about something happening, is that okay?
But so
Like,
you live in your little world in a
I
shell and
mean, the way we were brought up, and we've agreed with this before, we were in a bubble. We are lucky in our upbringing. There were things that people have been through when they're really young that we were like, oh my God, that is crazy. We were living in our cuckoo land, right?
that's when we were younger and where people were open to come to the country. Now it's people, the doors are shutting very quickly and there's reason to be chucked out.
Yeah.
So we need to be aware of what's going on. We need to stand up for ourselves because if we don't, our dear friends will chuck us out of the country.
Okay. All right. So that's another part of it. Just from where we go forward, what can listeners get out of following our journey, listening to our arguments and our conversations and debates, and we may or may not agree with each other?
I want to say one of the couple of the podcasts that we done previously were to do with miscarriage, baby loss, and we had quite a lot of people that came up to us and said thank you for bringing up that topic, and they started openly talking to us, messaging us, talking to us face to face, and started talking about their journey that they went through as well. It was like opening old wounds, but in a healing way to help them process what had happened. So I think we're going to be a therapeutic podcast
So
as well.
I just say,
Why
when you
laughing? I'm being really
I
laughing
know.
at
You
you.
just hold on. Said it's like opening old wounds. Usually people say that saying when next of
Trauma.
like basically. So do you think that's what we're going to do? Or we're going to
We're going to
traumatize?
change the narrative of what it means to open up old wounds.
If you can't remember the wounds, we will open them up. No problem. In a positive way.
We're going to bring along service providers that want to engage with the South Asian community and show our listeners, show or hear, no, both, because there's YouTube, our listeners that it's okay to reach out and ask for help.
Yeah, I mean they can show and see it and listen to it because it's on our YouTube channel at changing_suits. Also on Apple, Spotify, and all other excellent platforms. Yes, sorry, carry on. Yeah.
I
So
think that's it.
what support, but also I think the other part is we're listening to other people's stories. We're hearing different perspectives perhaps we might not agree with. There are social changes, like I said, that I've noticed personally that are happening that are creating different cultural issues and social issues that are questionable, that I want to discuss. But also it's about learning. I learned a lot about all the crap that I'd done and I regret doing now. Now thinking back, there was things that I shouldn't have said, done. So it's a bit of a personal journey as well. I mean, from the last set of stuff that we were doing, I changed my life completely, which is good.
A whole different person, which shows that you can change as you get older.
Yes, I will stop railroading, but also last year, 2025, I hit 40 and that's been a clanger, a clanger. So whilst I've got time left over,
What are you
years
dying
left
over?
we need to make sure.
After 40, life does go on and it gets better because you don't mind what you say anymore. And it doesn't matter if you swear anymore. If you don't like someone, you don't care. You just cut them out of your life.
Cut them out. They've gone.
Yeah.
And exactly what we do now. Just cut them out.
Yeah. Because if they take your energy, then it's time to not kill them. Cut them.
Cut them out. And that's another topic that we will discuss. Should we be cutting people out of our lives? And that is a big one because it's
We'll
a
talk
big
about
change.
in-laws quite a lot there.
Yeah, okay.
Confused. What's that? Who are they?
I know. But yeah, all right, fine. I'm happy to do that because we can talk about that. We've got a bit of experience in that noting. Anyway, let's move on. What else can listeners and viewers to our YouTube channel at changing_suits expect?
Well, if you're going to forget how to say it, God help the people that are going to look it up.
Subscribe and like our channel. Share it with everybody.
we're going to start looking to the future and how we personally can make changes, and we don't need to look to others to do the change. We should be the change.
True that, sister. True that. And on that note, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, changing_suits, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.